So next week, we're finally going to be getting Best Boy of Part 5 animated. I'm pretty excited. I really am. I don't want to get into any spoilers or anything, but it's going to be nice to finally see certain scenes with this character animated, and they cannot come soon enough. But okay, with that being said though, Black Sabbath. I really, really love the stand design in anime form. It's honestly, the eerie vibe it gave off was so inhuman, which I know stands technically, they're not really human, but just seeing the way it acted every time, Koichi or, Giorno got near a shadow, it was very jarring, because, every time they barely touched a shadow, it would just jump at him, trying to grab them. It's scary, and I think the episode was perfect for this holiday season, since it's technically about to be Halloween. I know some places around the world, you might not celebrate Halloween, but I feel like this was just a very good episode for this time of year, because there was just such a creepy feeling about Black Sabbath when it was just sitting there idling and just walking and all that pacing, or just acting very robotic. I don't know, the tone of it. David Productions, fantastic work, which, by the way, there was something that happened within this episode that honestly blew my mind. As someone that has read Part 5, David Productions fixed a pretty big issue with Part 5 JoJo in this episode. And I know anime-onlys are not really going to notice it, they're not really going to care too much, but, there is a scene in this episode with Giorno when he gets kind of impaled or poked by the arrow. And there's a little bit more that happens within the manga. I'm not going to dive into details because spoiler reasons, but basically things changed within this episode of JoJo Part 5 that actually kind of clarified a few things and made it to where there couldn't potentially be a plot hole later down the road in this arc. And I appreciate David Productions doing something like that, because it proves that they're actually correcting some mistakes that have happened in JoJo. And that is what I'm truly impressed with, because, even though JoJo is an amazing series, it's definitely one of the best manga series that has ever come out, it still has some issues. I mean, there's a whole meme going on. There's always been a meme going on with Araki and forgetting. That's always been a big thing. Everybody talks about that, and that's like the main pairing or something, the OTP. But jokes aside, though, there was a plot hole that many could think is a plot hole that happened in this part in the manga, but was corrected in the anime, and I just want to praise David Productions for actually fixing that, because if they're willing to do something like this, then I can't wait to see some things that they might fix in future, not just in this part, but, in Part 6 and so on. So that's what I'm happy to see. Now, anyways, Polpo, the absolute unit, he died in this episode, which I know for a fact many did not see that coming, because when you see how his character was introduced and who he was, you obviously probably expected this man maybe to be around for a little bit, maybe. But what happened to him in this episode, in a lot of ways, was very, very savage. And I think this perfectly sets the tone of how Part 5 is. It's a very dark part. There is a lot of, gritty, violent themes throughout Part 5 JoJo. I'm just going to clarify that up front. And I think many watching this episode that has watched the anime of JoJo, like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, and now Part 5, are going to be just absolutely stunned with the lack of censorship and just the way Pulpo's death was done. It honestly, it blew me away with how that scene was. It was actually so much better in the anime, because the way it was done in the manga, it's kind of like the way Giorno did it. It didn't seem right because, Pulpo kind of died as soon as Giorno left in, the manga, but there was a little bit of a gap time frame from what you see. That you see the way this episode does it, and when Pulpo just, he's done, the way it's done in this episode, it fits better with the message of the story, at least this arc and part of Part 5, and what Araki was trying to tell us through Giorno's character. So, let's talk about that. So, Pulpo, he's gone, obviously, and the way he died was definitely something that is very unlike anything we've technically seen from any MC from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I mean, number one, we do know that Giorno does have the Joestar courage, the heart within him. I mean, Koichi even goes out of his way to say that within this episode, which proves that deep down, even though Giorno does seem to have some darker elements to him that could be very reminiscent of Dio, he does have a good heart deep down. And even though what he did to Polpo was messed up, we also got to factor in what other JoJo's have done to individuals. I mean, think about what Joseph, Old Man Joseph, or the original Joseph from Part 2 before he became an old man, think about what he did to Cars. I mean, he straight up sent that man into space to forever just drift into space to where he's stuck like that for all eternity. That's kind of messed up when you think about that. And then you have the stuff that Josuke did, turning people into like a stone or whatever. So, I mean, I guess in a way, out of anything that could have potentially happened to someone, Giorno actually did something a lot nicer to a character or a villain compared to what we've seen from others. Which, anyways, that was a very smart move by Giorno. Disguising a banana, like a gun into a banana like that, that was definitely a smart move. And you gotta admit that you probably never saw that coming. When you were watching this episode, and you know that Giorno did something, you're left wondering, what did he do? Did he potentially, like, put insects or something like poisonous in the banana or anything? That's probably what you're thinking, maybe some form of poison or whatever, when you saw how he messed with the man's fridge. But then we found out what it really was. You're like, whoa, this is extreme, like really extreme for JoJo. And this is when I really started to realize that this part of JoJo is completely different from anything else. It's like, I just like to style it, because Giorno, even though, like I said, JoJo Bloodline, he has these side or aspects of Dio, a little bit of a savage side to it. And I thought that the way Giorno used Polpo's words against him was actually incredibly powerful. Because as we know, the convictions that Giorno has, he doesn't want innocents to be hurt. He doesn't want anyone to get hurt. And that's the whole purpose of why he wants to become, a gangstar, is because he wants to protect the innocent. And that right there just proved that if you do him wrong, it's curtains for you. You're on the chopping block. But okay. Anyways, let's talk about the situation with Black Sabbath and how it was taken down. So obviously, if you're unaware, JoJo, or stands in JoJo, different characters, whatever, a lot of times, or oftentimes, actually most of the time to be honest, most of the time when stands are revealed, usually they're a reference to some form of old metal music, pop music, whatever, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. It's old music, basically. And Black Sabbath is also a reference to a song, a cover song and all that, in real day, real world and all that, and which is the reason why a lot of these names, stand names and stuff, end up being very censored, is because they actually are referencing to real things in real life. And so obviously, to stop itself from being copyrighted, they have to change the names in some ways, at least in the English translations. So, yeah, Black Sabbath, obviously, the name is referenced to, like, a metal band, and then you have the stuff with, all these other names we've seen in the past, like, Sticky Fingers turning into Zipperman. It's just like, yeah, it's freaking hilarious. But anyways, Black Sabbath, he had a very simplistic stand. Like, it was a very simplistic stand that Pulpo had. It was a long-distance stand, but it still was very scary and very powerful. But it does raise up a very important question, which was the arrow, the bow and arrow that was introduced in Part 4. Now, obviously, this was a theme that was already present in Part 3, but you didn't really truly understand the importance of the bow and arrow until Part 4 of JoJo, when it started a lot of things. And now we're starting to see the bow and arrow pop up again in Part 5, because with what happened with Pulpo and how his stand literally had an arrow inside of its mouth, it could actually create stand users. That means that, there's been a lot more stand users created, and, they got their hands, so whoever gave this to Polpo gave him an arrow that, has allowed him to just, start a lot of other things, which is very reminiscent to what happened in Part 4. So there is definitely an overarching plot going on from the Part 3, part to Part 5. And, that's definitely going to be a big theme that you can get from this episode, and it's going to be very important for the endgame, or for the main plot of Part 5. But okay, dropping it for now, because I don't want to get too deep into spoiler territory, let's talk about, the scene towards the middle half of the episode, when, Giorno basically, he didn't really want to explain anything to Koichi, He was trying to hold back, didn't want to say anything, but then he realized if he really wanted to earn Koichi's trust, he was going to have to just be upfront with the man and tell him the truth, and he told him about what was going on, he told him about Pulpo, he basically told him how the stand was and all that, and, you know, he got an ally in that moment, and Koichi did something very risky, honestly. He was analyzing Giorno's, you know, as a person, seeing if he was worthy of trusting, and in a way, you can kind of look at this episode from two different angles. We know that Giorno was trying to earn the trust of Polpo, but it wasn't just that. He was also earning the trust of Koichi. Koichi put his faith in Giorno as a person and respected him to where he's like, you know what, I trust you. You're not a bad dude. I'll let you go on for a while until I can tell, you know, the Speedwagon Foundation about you. That's a great moment because even though it seems like he didn't earn any trust or he's not to be trusted after what we've seen, Koichi trusts the man, and that was the importance of this episode. And so he lied. Koichi lied for, you know, Giorno, which is a very big moment for Koichi as a character, but also Giorno. So anyways, yeah, that's pretty much about it when it comes to this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5. It's a great episode. It's, honestly, it's way better than I expected it to be. I mean, it perfectly adapted this little part in the manga. It fixed a few things that were a problem within the manga. And obviously, the quality of the artwork and all that is just beautiful. So, I mean, there's really no way you can actually complain about this episode. It's just that freaking good. But, yeah, I think I want to end this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. Chibi out.